The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my hotel lobby, casting long, golden streaks across the polished marble. I adjusted my silk blouse, feeling the smooth fabric glide over my skin, a luxury I'd earned myself. Guests passed by, murmuring compliments about the renovation, unaware that I had fought tooth and nail to make this place mine. My phone buzzed on the mahogany desk, an unfamiliar number. I hesitated, a flicker of curiosity mixed with an old, familiar tension. "Hello," I said, keeping my tone casual, almost indifferent. "Claire, it's Michael," came the voice I hadn't expected to hear. My stomach lurched. My brother. The same brother whose wedding my parents had prioritized over mine, who had once made me feel invisible in my own family. I stared out at the city skyline, my reflection in the window showing a composed woman, but inside, my chest tightened. Memories I'd carefully tucked away threatened to surface. The sting of rejection, the quiet nights of loneliness, the ache of being overlooked. And yet, there was pride too, the kind that came from building something from nothing, proving my worth without waiting for approval. "I'll be there in an hour," he continued. "I need to talk." I placed my hand over the cool glass of the window, letting the tension seep through me. This was it, the past had just walked back into my life, and I had to face it head-on. But this time, I wasn't the same Claire they had ignored. I was stronger, smarter, and ready. I remember that spring like it was yesterday, though I was barely 25 then, naive and hopeful. My apartment smelled faintly of lilies, a gift from my roommate for my engagement. I had imagined my parents walking me down the aisle, their eyes brimming with pride, but reality was sharper, colder. The phone call had come first. "Claire, we think it's best if we focus on David's wedding this year," my mother said, her voice clinical, almost rehearsed. "We just can't do both." I froze, clutching the table edge so hard my knuckles turned white. "What do you mean? My wedding is next month. Your choosing is over mine?" There was a pause, a silence that felt like a slap. "It's just better this way," she said, as if that explained everything. I remember the lump in my throat, the way my hands shook. I could hear my father in the background, offering no objection, just a subtle nod as though my feelings were invisible. I had tried to protest, to explain how hard I'd worked to make my day meaningful, how I had been dreaming about this moment my entire adult life, but it felt like screaming into a void. That night, I sat on my bed, staring at the delicate necklace my grandmother had given me on my 21st birthday, the one she always said would guide me when life felt unfair. She had whispered then, "Claire, you may not see it now, but your path is yours to carve. Don't let anyone decide your worth." And I realized she was right. I couldn't depend on my family's choices to define me. I couldn't wait for them to celebrate me. I had to celebrate myself. With tears streaming down my face, I packed my engagement notes and my dreams into a suitcase and left their house with a heart aching, yet strangely light. That night marked the first real step toward independence. I promised myself I would build a life that mattered, not just to them, but to me. A life where no one could ignore my presence or achievements ever again. And so began the journey of turning heartbreak into fuel, disappointment into determination. That night, I wasn't just leaving a home. I was stepping into the beginning of my own story, one they had refused to witness, but one I would own completely. Leaving home that night was terrifying and liberating all at once. I had no roadmap, just a suitcase, my grandmother's necklace tucked against my heart, and a quiet determination to make something of myself. I moved to Chicago, a city that felt alive with possibility, but also indifferent to my presence. I rented a tiny studio apartment, the walls bare, the air smelling faintly of paint and ambition. I started small, taking a job at a boutique hotel that barely covered my rent. The long hours were grueling, mornings filled with stacking linens, afternoons chasing deliveries, evenings resolving complaints, but each task taught me something. I watched the managers, noting their strategies, the way they treated staff and guests, the subtle art of making people feel seen. Slowly, I absorbed knowledge, learning not just to survive but to lead. It wasn't easy. There were nights I cried into cheap coffee, doubting if I had the strength to keep going. I questioned whether I'd ever escape the shadow of my family's disregard. But every morning, I fastened my blouse, smoothed my hair, and told myself, "You are more than their choices. You are your own path." One day, I met Evelyn, a seasoned hotel owner who noticed my drive. "You've got an eye for detail and a head for business," she said over the clatter of room keys and check-in papers. "Most people your age don't know what they're missing." She became my mentor, showing me the intricacies of management, finances, and client relations. Under her guidance, I learned to turn small victories into stepping stones. First, securing a local catering contract, then booking a major corporate client, then buying my first share in the hotel I worked at. I kept my progress quiet from my family, sharing only modest updates on social media, a generic photo of a city skyline or a cup of coffee with a caption about busy mornings. No one suspected the empire I was quietly building, the long nights spent negotiating, planning, and dreaming. Every milestone, my first profit, my first employee, my first full booking, felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. By the time I purchased the boutique hotel outright, I had transformed from the hurt, overlooked girl into a woman who commanded respect, skill, and independence. And all along, my grandmother's necklace remained around my neck, a constant reminder. Life may have ignored me once, but it would never get the chance again. I had created a space where I was seen, heard, and valued. A space that belonged entirely to me. The day they arrived, I made sure everything was perfect. The lobby gleamed with polished marble, sunlight bouncing off gold-accented fixtures. The scent of fresh flowers lingered in the air, and soft jazz played in the background. I had arranged the space to reflect my journey. Every detail intentional, every corner speaking of years of hard work and perseverance. My brother, Michael, stepped through the glass doors first. I could tell he expected to see the girl who had once been crushed by our parents' indifference. He looked around, confused, his eyes narrowing as he took in the elegance of the space, the hum of activity, the seamless operation. "Claire, wow," he murmured, his voice a mixture of awe and disbelief. I smiled, letting him soak it in. "Welcome to my hotel, Michael," I said, letting the weight of ownership hang in the air. My parents arrived moments later, cautiously stepping in, the lines of age and stress softened by their astonishment. My mother's lips parted, no words forming. My father's eyes widened, a flicker of shame crossing his face as he recognized the world I had built without their support. I gestured toward the check-in desk, where my staff moved efficiently, handling guests with precision and warmth. "Everyone here," I said, "is part of what I've built. This isn't just a hotel. It's the culmination of years of work, nights of doubt, and mornings I refused to quit. And I did it all on my own." Michael swallowed hard, shifting uneasily. I had no idea." "You didn't need to," I replied, my voice calm but firm. "Because when I needed you or our parents, you all chose to look away. I made a choice too. I chose to rise. To create a space where I mattered, where I was visible, respected, and in control." I led them through the hotel, pointing out the art I had personally curated, the rooms renovated under my supervision, the conference spaces I had designed to attract top-tier clients. Every step was deliberate, a visual testimony of my perseverance. Finally, we reached my office, a space that was half sanctuary, half command center. I gestured to the city skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows. "This is my empire," I said. "I own this hotel, its profits, its brand, everything. And the person who manages the operations? Michael, that would be you if you're willing to work under me, like everyone else." I saw the shock on his face, the disbelief in my parents' eyes. My father cleared his throat. "Claire, we never realized." "Of course you didn't," I said softly, almost pityingly. "You were too busy making decisions about whose happiness mattered more. Now you see the result of the choices you made." I paused, letting the silence settle. It wasn't anger or revenge that fueled me. It was truth. I had taken every ounce of pain, every moment of being overlooked, and converted it into strength. Today, they could finally witness the woman I had become. Not the girl they had ignored, but a leader, a visionary, and their equal in ways they had never imagined. Standing in my office, I felt a sense of calm authority I had never experienced with my family before. They were in my space now, in my world, seeing me as I truly was, not the overlooked girl from years ago. And for the first time, the power balance had shifted. "I'm willing to give each of you a role here," I began, my tone steady, firm, yet not unkind. "But it comes with conditions." My parents exchanged anxious glances. Michael looked both wary and humbled. "Conditions?" he echoed. "Yes," I said, walking toward the sleek conference table. "Each of you will contribute meaningfully and with respect. No excuses, no old patterns of entitlement or disregard." Turning to my brother, I continued, "Michael, you will manage operations, but only if you commit fully. That means punctuality, dedication, and respecting your team. No more coasting on family favor. You will learn humility and earn your place every day." His shoulders stiffened, but I could see recognition dawning in his eyes, the acknowledgement that he had something to prove. "To Mom and Dad," I said, addressing them directly, "your roles are advisory but limited. You cannot dictate or belittle. You will attend a leadership workshop with me and actively participate in understanding how to support, rather than overshadow, others. The days of favoritism are over." I let my words sink in, watching their faces shift from defensiveness to tentative understanding. "These conditions are not punishment," I added, softer now. "They are opportunities to grow, to repair, and to finally engage with this family in a way that fosters respect and equality." I paced slowly, letting the weight of my presence be felt. "I will help, guide, and mentor, but only if the past mistakes are acknowledged, and only if each of you agrees to these terms." The room was silent, heavy with realization. The old dynamics had fractured. I felt a strange mix of compassion and resolve. I wanted them to succeed alongside me, but never at the expense of my own progress. I had spent too long being overlooked. This was my moment, my rules. Finally, Michael spoke, voice low but sincere. "I understand, Claire. I want to do it right this time." My mother's eyes filled with tentative tears. "We will try, Claire. Truly." I nodded, a quiet smile touching my lips. "That's all I ask. Growth, effort, and honesty. I am willing to guide you, but nothing more. The rest is up to you." As I looked around, I realized something profound. The woman who had left her family years ago, feeling abandoned and invisible, was now the one shaping the future. The pain had transformed into power, compassion tempered with strength. And in that room, I finally saw the possibility for a new kind of family, one built on respect, effort, and mutual recognition. Weeks passed, and change began quietly but unmistakably. Michael was learning to lead with respect and dedication, no longer relying on his family's past favoritism. He managed the staff with a newfound humility, asking questions, listening, and earning the trust he had once assumed was his by birthright. My parents, too, were attempting to understand, attending workshops, asking questions, and gradually letting go of old habits that had caused so much pain. I watched them from the corner of the lobby one afternoon, sunlight catching the edges of my grandmother's necklace. It was still with me, a constant reminder of the advice that had guided my life. Your path is yours to carve. Don't let anyone decide your worth. Every smile of recognition, every small gesture of effort, felt like a step toward healing for them, but also for me. Sitting in my office later that evening, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. I remembered the sting of rejection, the nights spent crying over loneliness, the whispered dismissals from the people who were supposed to support me. And I felt pride, immense pride, for the woman I had become. A woman who had taken her pain and shaped it into power, her independence, and a thriving life she owned completely. I realized, too, that my relationships had shifted in ways I never expected. I no longer needed validation from those who had hurt me, but I had found a way to let them witness my success, and in doing so, offer them a chance to grow alongside me. Compassion without compromise, that had become my mantra. The hotel hummed with life outside my office window, each guest unaware of the story that had unfolded behind the polished walls. I touched my grandmother's necklace lightly, feeling the cool metal against my skin. She was right. I had carved my own path. I had honored my worth. And now I could do it with grace. I leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes for a moment, letting the quiet triumph wash over me. I had faced rejection, overcome doubt, and emerged stronger than ever. And as I opened my eyes, looking at the skyline stretched before me, I knew one thing for certain. I am seen. I am heard. I am enough, and I always have been.